So we're going to be talking about the days of Moshiach. Okay, so what does Moshiach mean to you? Who can tell me some kind of idea of what Moshiach means to them?
Freedom.
Freedom, okay. That was a good one.
Freedom.
Yes, anybody else?
Evils.
And love.
Endless
Love.
life. Endless life.
Justice,
And,
endless life.
Turn the God, Hashem.
Okay, connecting to Hashem.
Connecting, yeah.
Okay, very good.
No more holidays. Just
Deep everything.
Yes, okay, she knows that.
redemption.
Redemption, okay. Anybody else?
Tshuva.
Tshuva? Okay, that could be also something to think about. Okay, so the question is, what is different nowadays than it ever was before? Because we know the idea of Mashiach, we've been hearing this for many centuries. The question is now, why is it any different in this century? So we have to understand, if you know the flood of Noah. Do you remember the flood? So the flood, we had the waters coming from above, and then the waters coming from below. So we're actually comparing that to right now, this generation. For the past 200 years, we've been having floods of water in a spiritual sense. In the very spiritual, in Judaism, and also in the physical sense, in technology, in new inventions, and different things like that. If you look back about 200 years, you will see absolutely, you could not recognize the world in those days. I know myself, I went to Ukraine one time, and I went to the city of Haditch, and in that city, it's the Alter Rebbe is buried there, the first Chabad Rebbe is buried there. And in that city, there are people walking around with horse and buggy. There's no lights at night. There are no bathrooms. And like, to me, it's like all of a sudden, like, oh my God, it's like 200 years ago. Yeah. You know, people were chopping wood. There's a guy coming with his horse and buggy with a bunch of wood on the back of his buggy. And to me, it was like, oh wow, 200 years have passed, and look where we are right now. Look at the technology. It's like as if the waters of the earth have opened up. Water is like knowledge. So the waters of the earth have opened up. Then we also see that we get new knowledge of Torah. What is the new knowledge of Torah? The Kabbalah and the Hasidus came into play, and it's changed our way of looking at things in our life here. We see that coming from the Baal Shem Tov, which is the founder of Hasidus, coming all the way to now, we've gone through different ideas of what does it mean, our soul, what does it mean us, what is our purpose in life? Did we understand before our purpose in life? We never talked about our purpose in life. All we did was Torah and mitzvot. All we did was learn Torah and do good deeds. We never thought about our purpose in life. As we're going on in life, we start to see that there's some sort of purpose. What is our purpose? Where are we heading to? And where are we actually heading to? We're heading to a different era. An era of more knowledge. Of knowledge of God that we've never had before. This is the era that we're going. And not just that, the knowledge of humanity that we've never had before. Who ever thought about a DNA in the old days? Who would think about actually understanding your body in the way that it is now? The amazing technology and the amazing health benefits that we get now. We even hear that there's cures for cancer coming out. From Israel, of course, right? We hear all these things. So things are happening. So now how is this whole thing unfolding? If we go back to the time of the Talmud, they said at the end of days, the last person to try to terminate the Jews is Yishmael. Who is Yishmael? The son of Abraham. And now the Yishmaelim are who? The Arabs, the Muslims. They are the Yishmaelim. They are the last people to want to overpower the world. And this is what it said in the Gemara. Even Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus, who was a Tana, who was a person who wrote the Talmud, one of the people, he said that the Muslims, or the Yishmaelim he called them at that time, because he didn't know the name Muslims, will build a temple on our holy site. How would he know that? It's amazing that he had that vision. And it actually happened in our days. It says in the Malbim, in Avadia, that at the end of days, Christianity, who they call anybody that's from Edom is like Christianity, like Rome, because the Romans started Christianity. They have, what do they have? They have the trait of arrogance. If you see anyone that was a Roman emperor or a head of Christianity, they're always like, me, I'm so great, I'm so wonderful. You know, this is their way. I mean, even now we have a head of Edom, which in the Western world is America. Who is that? Trump. He has arrogance, of course, right? We see his arrogance. I'm this, and I'll do this, and I'll do that. This is Edom. This is the sign of Edom. That Edom will fight against Yishmael, which is the Muslims. And what is the problem of the Muslims? They want everything to be their way. They want their freedom to practice their way and no other way. They even make whatever they do kosher. Why? They say that beating a woman is kosher. It's fine. There's no problem with it.
It's not all the Muslims, I'm sorry.
Who else? Who else besides the Muslims?
It's not all the Muslims.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's Muslims in Israel that are Christian.
We're actually talking about the heads of the Muslim countries like Iran and Iraq.
Terrorist regime.
Okay, we can't be... Right. 100% you can't generalize. I'm sorry that...
It's the same like they say about the Jews.
Right. Exactly.
It's a terrorist regime. The terrorist regime.
Jews, you can say Am Kasher Oref. They're very stubborn. But not every Jew is stubborn. You're right.
Yeah.
But we're talking generally. We're not talking about specific people. Generally, the Muslim religion teaches certain things. Okay? So that's what we were talking about. If we see what's going on now in Europe, they want to have their own freedom. Their way of practicing things. That's their idea. I'm not saying that every Muslim man beats his wife, but I'm saying in general, when we talk about generally the Muslim religion, this is where they were from. This is how they evolved. Some of them are not religious anymore, so they don't do that kind of stuff.
No,
obviously,
I lived in Israel. I had wonderful friends. Arabs,
oh yeah,
and
of course.
And I had horrible Jews friends.
100%. I'm not even being.
Yeah.
I'm not being. I'm only generalizing. Okay. Again, we say Am Kasher Oref. We say for the Jewish people, stubborn, but not everyone's stubborn. So it's a generalization that I'm using. So don't take it personal, because there are plenty of people that are not like that. There are plenty of Christians that don't have arrogance too. But I'm saying I would say the rulership. More like the rulership, the ones that we see. So basically, so again, it says in the Malbim, going back to the Malbim, in Ovadia, that Edom, which is Christianity, will fight with the Muslims, which is actually happening right now. This will be a start of different battles. We actually know that in the end of days, there's something called Gog Umagog. That is supposed to be the battle of the end of days. Actually, according to Lubavitcher Rebbe, this battle doesn't necessarily mean a physical battle. It could be a spiritual battle. We can do a spiritual battle means a battle of the minds, a battle of ideologies. I mean, so we're not really sure what that really means. It does say in Yalkut Shimoni, which is a medrash, which is in the medrash, when Paras. When Paras will come and try to fight with Aram, then God says to the Jewish people, don't worry, because right now, Higia Zman Ge'ulaschem. This is the time for redemption. Don't get scared. A lot of people say that Paras is Iran. Some people say Paras is Iraq. It's very close because Persia was in Iraq, and some people say it's part of Iran too. So we're not really sure exactly where Persia is. So and it's interesting, in the Zohar, it did say that there would be a Migdal Te'umim, twin towers that will fall down. And this already actually happened. It said that was the end of days. We're past that end of days, because that was in 2001, and now we're in 2020. So the interesting thing is that the Vilna Gaon says that this war at the end of days will only take 12 minutes, which is interesting. So we don't really know whether it's a war or just a war of ideologies. So not necessarily that we're having a real war, it could be like an argument or something like that.
Or a nuclear war, which takes seconds.
That's true, but let's look positive. Okay? I know, I get your point, but let's look positive. And the reason we want to look positive is because we want to understand that it could have been a possibility already. Because what went on in the past 20, 30 years, less, the past 10 years, a lot more was going on. Do you know that the war in Iraq could have been 10 times worse? They had nuclear power. They had bombs that could have killed everyone. They even had warheads ready with missiles filled with nuclear
Energy.
what?
Nuclear,
Energy, right. Nuclear energy. They could have easily killed out a lot more people. But God made us a miracle that Israel was saved completely. And especially if you know that the time that Saddam Hussein was in power, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, nobody leave Israel. Stay in Israel because Israel is the safest place. And it happened so. Nothing affected Israel. The warheads that came were unbelievably, those Scuds did not kill almost no people. The only people, right, nobody.
No,
the only people that died
Only
were
one
people,
person
right.
got heart attack, but
Right,
not
got a heart
like-
attack. Right,
Yeah,
right. But it didn't kill people with that thing. That means it was such a miracle that it's unbelievable miracle. Interesting things that the Zohar says that 70 years, the way end, the last 70 years are called Chevlei Mashiach. Chevlei Mashiach are what? They're like the birth pangs. You know when a woman has a baby, at the way end, she's ready to push out. What happens to the baby when she's pushing it out?
Get squeezed.
What does it do, usually? The baby, when it's starting to get pushed out, what will the baby do? Move back. Did you ever see that? They move back. You push the baby out, and they move back. You push the baby out a little further, and they move back a little bit. You push it out further, and they move back a little bit. And each time you're trying to get this baby out, it keeps moving a little back.
And they said, stop, don't push.
Right. So it's interesting to see. You're saying the 70 last years. I want to tell you, this is 70 years after the Holocaust. It's also the 70 years after the Lubavitcher Rebbe became Rebbe. He became Rebbe in 1950. Sorry, 1950, and now we're in 2020. So this is exactly 70 years later. It says the Zohar has 70 years and 9 months, which is very interesting. And it says at the way end, it's going to be the Chavlei Mashiach. In other words, the birth pangs of Mashiach. It's going to go forward and a little bit back. Forward and a little bit back. What do we see now? On one hand, we see so many miracles happening. But on the other hand, what do we see? We see anti-Semitism going on. We see different difficulties for people happening. So those are the little steps going back. You see the babies moving back a little bit. But we're still moving forward. So it's interesting to see that, so we see how that's working. So from 1990, we start to see things going downhill again. First, we see everything starting to go up in a way, and then all of a sudden things go down here, because what happened in 2001? There was the Twin Towers fell. There was, after that, there was the Oslo Accords. Then there was fighting against Jerusalem. All 70 nations came together in Paris, and what did they say? What did the 70 nations come together in Paris during the time of Obama? Against Jerusalem. Against Jerusalem. They all signed a paper against Jerusalem. And it was like shocking. It's like, what's going on here? Are we going backwards in time? What's happening here? All of a sudden, everything starts to change in a minute. But let's look first at the different physical things that are happening in the signs of Moshiach. One of the signs that it says in the Gemara is that wine will be very expensive. Wine. And we see that now, actually. Why? Because it's supply and demand. A lot of people want wine. And wine becomes expensive because people, not because there's no grapes, but because it's supply and demand. People want wine. A lot of people drink wine. Also, when you buy clothes, it'll be on one hand expensive, on one hand cheap. What does that mean?
Cheap quality.
No, it's not just cheap quality. But if you go on Amazon, you can get the same pair of pants for $20 as you can get the same pair of pants at $200. Right?
Quality.
It could be quality. Sometimes it's quality, but not that much.
The brand.
Sometimes it's the brand name. Exactly. A Gucci, belt will cost you
it's buying it from the
$2,000, and a regular belt will cost you $50 or $150, whatever.
It's the fact that you bought it from the store that matters. Like you buy it from that store.
Right. But that's one of the signs of Mashiach. The times of Mashiach is that the clothes will be expensive and cheap at the same time, and whatever we buy will be expensive and cheap. And this is exactly what's happening.
But I think it has been like this all the time.
No. It was not like that. In the old days, when you bought a belt, you bought a belt. Or you bought a dress, you bought a dress. I mean, you had to sew the dress, you had to make the dress, right? Now...
And you buy cheap when it's used. But now you can buy new things.
New things, right. New things cheap. Exactly. See, now you got it. Very good. Also, that it says that during the time of Mashiach, some people will believe in God and some people won't believe in God. But only one mitzvah everybody's going to do. Do you know what mitzvah that is? Almost everyone's going to do. There's still a couple people who won't do it.
Eat kosher food?
No, not everybody eats kosher. What's like one of the things in America that almost every parent does for their child? Gives them a circumcision. So we see that circumcision, even though people say against circumcision, this and that, but a lot of people want their children to be circumcised, even if they're not religious at all. Like they don't keep anything whatsoever. The only thing they keep is Brit Milah, circumcision. That's it.
Are you talking about for Jews only? Because
Oh, non-Jews do it too. Of course. But I'm saying, but don't you see that that circumcision, which was the first mitzvah that God gave, is still there? Everything else is kind of moving away. But the circumcision stays for some odd reason. Even though people say it's barbaric, it's this, it's that, but it still stays for some reason. It's amazing. I mean, no matter how secular you are, you're looking for a mile in whatever city you live to do a circumcision, except for Russia because they stamped it out. It was a big problem there. But other than that, everywhere that's a free country, circumcision is still there. Yeah.
In Russia too.
Okay. Then the other thing it says that when the time of Mashiach, the Heishiv Lev Avot Al Banim, that the children will know more than the parents, and the children will teach the parents. Do we see that nowadays?
Yes.
With the
Computer, iPhone, iPad, this, that. Yeah, the kids are teaching us everything.
Mom, don't bang the table.
And also, not just that the kids are teaching the parents, but they're also a little bit chutzpahdik with it. They have chutzpah a little bit more than usual, right?
That's also clear about chutzpah.
Yeah, it does actually, which is interesting. Yeah, which is interesting. Yeah, it'll be. Yeah. So now let's see what will actually happen when Mashiach comes. Okay, this is the times of Mashiach, but when Mashiach actually comes, we know that it's going to be very, very quickly. Nobody's going to even notice that it happened. It's going to go like this, and we're going to say, wow, how did that happen? There's going to be no more wars. Going to be completely peace. And the wolves will lie down together, right? That means that, number one, it could be peace. Number two, it could be animals at peace. There will be such an overflow of knowledge that will be so shocked that we wouldn't be able to even take everything in so quick. It'll just be becoming, the knowledge. And we'll be able to see godliness openly. We'll be able to see that there is a God in the world without looking for God. We'll be able to see it openly. Also, that there'll be no jealousy, no anger. And then, about Jerusalem, very interesting, that Jerusalem will be like a big mountain, and everything around it will be flat. And you know how big Jerusalem's going to be? All the way to Damascus.
Whoa.
It's going to be 994 miles by 994 miles.
But okay, what's going on with houses in Jerusalem and with apartments?
It's expensive.
No. I'm talking about if you think that it
You'll be in Jerusalem. You'll be there. But it will be expanded. It's already a little...
mountain, you said...
Now, I said Jerusalem will be on a mountain. Everything else will be flat. It is on a mountain now. But everything around Jerusalem will be flat. So you'll be able to see Jerusalem from far away.
So is Israel going to take over the world? Is that what it's saying?
It's just saying that Jerusalem will be so big. And I guess Israel will be even bigger than that, obviously.
Things Trump.
Huh?
Things Trump.
Yeah. Okay, wait, we're getting to that point. Okay, so, and the Beis HaMikdash, the temple, we will partially build it and partially will come down from heaven. It's a very interesting thing. It says that on one hand we'll build it, on the other hand it'll come down from heaven. What does that mean? It means that it'll come down from heaven, and I guess I look at it, maybe we'll do the plumbing and the electricity to keep it down. Maybe we'll call Daniel. And also Israel will have a lot of fruit. And we see that already, that Israel is blossoming, especially now with all the waters that just came into Israel. Everything's overflowing. At the same time, in Europe, in Venice, the water's going down. Did you see that? In Venice, the water's going down. The canals are going down. And in Israel, all the water's going up. Isn't that weird? Yeah. So now, what do we see after all the darkness? So we went through a dark time. We went through the time that Jerusalem, that everybody was against Jerusalem, and then all of a sudden, who shows up? All of a sudden, a person from another world shows up that we were very shocked that he would ever become president. So we have President Trump. Although he is like an Esav, he's not a very easy person to deal with.
Does not matter.
That's not the point.
But
What is he doing? What is he doing? What is he doing? What is he doing for the Jewish people? First thing he did for Israel is say Jerusalem belongs to the Jews. And Jerusalem's the capital of Israel. Right. And you know it's interesting when he said that? He said it on the 19th of Kislev. You know what the 19th is Kislev? It's the day that the first Lubavitcher Rebbe went out of prison. So he said it on a very special day.
Very special day.
Very special. Yeah. And then, what did he do next? He also said that the settlements in around Israel are all legal. He legitimized them, right? 100%. And that happened actually on another Hasidic holiday, which is 20th of Cheshvan. He also freed Mordechai Rabashkin, who was in jail for absolutely no reason but being Jewish. So he freed him on the 8th day of Hanukkah, which is also a special day. Mm-hmm. Then, before that, we know that Saddam Hussein was killed, but that wasn't through him, that was before him. And then, who was killed after? Soleimani. Soleimani, who now, if you look at the news, you figure out what this guy could have done. He maimed people. He put mines all over Iraq. So all the soldiers, the American soldiers, got killed. He was the architect behind so many things. Not just that, he's the architect behind Hezbollah. And did you notice what they did in exchange? They sent 15 rockets in exchange. That was really lame. Really lame. They couldn't do nothing. Why? Because Soleimani was the head. He was the chachma. He was the kopmensch,
mastermind, yeah.
the mastermind, right behind everything. Without him, they're lost. You know, maybe they'll find another guy, but there's nobody like him. It's very hard to find this person. And now we see, actually, that Iran is falling. There was an Olympic woman that she said that she's leaving Iran because she can't deal with it. Today she said that, yeah. So you see that Iran is losing its feet. You know, and it's interesting to watch.
Flags? Did you read about flags?
Yeah.
They-
We're not gonna do it.
The students said they won't try. They won't.
Israeli flag and
Yeah,
American
they won't
flag.
step on
The
the flags,
American.
right?
Yeah.
They
Because
fighting for
people
that.
realize that if Soleimani's gone, they don't have to listen to Ayatollah Khomeini. People there starting more riots. They realize that Iran is falling. But you see, all over the Middle East, they're all falling. Syria, who else? Lebanon, what? Libya. They're all, everyone, one by one, have been falling. So
scary.
you see, it's a complete different world. And especially, and also we see, it's interesting, we talk about the anti-Semitic things in America.
Oh.
And we talk about New Jersey, what they did in New Jersey. Guess what? They found out that the guys who did the New Jersey massacre, in their van there was a bomb that was able to kill out 5 football fields. Can you imagine how big that is?
Wow.
That's how strong that bomb was. So that's what they really want to do. And they weren't planning to do it in New Jersey. They were planning to go to Ohio. I think Daytona, Ohio or something, and go to the Jewish community there
Yeah, they have a
and
Jewish
throw that bomb there. And the reason they got sidetracked was because there was a guy who met them in the cemetery. Remember, there was an inspector, and they killed him. But somehow, because of that, they got confused, and they just decided to kill anybody. You know, they weren't ready to do that. So you see, in a way, okay, fine, it's a terrible thing that happened. But at the same time, could you imagine what worse could have happened? And how we prevented a worse thing from happening? It's unbelievable. Also, we see one other thing. We see this week's Parsha talks about Moses. Moshe Rabbeinu. What happened with Moshe Rabbeinu? He was taken out of the water by who? By the daughter of the Pharaoh. Right, the daughter of the Pharaoh. He was taken out of the water. And it says that she gave him his name, Moshe. Min hamayim mish isihu. She took him out of the water. Why would somebody that's not Jewish give a name to the biggest leader in the world? What was Batya, the daughter of Paro, doing that day when she came to look and she found Moses? What was she doing?
Mikvah.
She was doing mikvah. Why was she doing mikvah?
You.
Because she became Jewish, right? Actually, we don't know for sure she became Jewish or she accepted monotheism. Nobody's sure 100%. Monotheism means that believe in one God. So either she accepted monotheism or so she took the Nilus, which was the lowest of the lowest of the lowest. Why? Because it was the Nilus was the Nile River. That was the idol worship of what? Of the Egyptians.
Of the Egyptians, yeah. They
use it as their idol.
it as
So
a-
she
yeah.
took an idol worship and she went in as a mikvah and elevated this idol and made it pure. And therefore, she took out Moshe Rabbeinu from this water and she was able to name him Moshe because she had changed the water. What do we see now? Who is the daughter of Pharaoh nowadays? Who can we think of as the daughter of Pharaoh?
Trump.
Ivanka.
Ivanka, very good. She's the daughter of Trump. What is she? She's Jewish. She became
daughter of
Jewish.
Pharaoh, yeah.
Who is the mastermind? Who do you think tells her to be good? Who do you think tells Trump to be nice to the Jews?
Jared Kushner.
Who do you think tells him to be nice to the Jews? You think he's such a nice person in general, Trump? He doesn't care about anybody. He cares about what he needs to do. But why is he so nice to the Jews? Because his daughter is Jewish.
But he had a lot of also friends.
That's why they said it.
Right, I understand that, but it's even more so the daughter of Trump.
It's good.
Moshe Rabbeinu,
Yes.
because
No, I agree with you.
Sheena,
He helped
if his
all
mother,
of, even
Pharaoh,
they did not ask
Dora,
him to help
she's
and
not
support,
Jewish.
he did this.
How he
I
become
read
Jewish?
an article, which is,
Who?
was
Moshe?
amazing. Amazing
Pharaoh's
about
daughter was
him.
Moshe wasn't Pharaoh.
Okay, well, I
Pharaoh's-
don't want to talk about
Moshe
politics.
wasn't-
I don't want to get into it.
Pharaoh.
But I'm trying. I know, but I'm trying to get to the
Basically what
point
happened was his
of
birthright. They weren't allowed to
understanding
help and
that
he
we
was not
are in the
Jewish.
Messianic era. That we are in this time that things are changing. On one hand, we see miracles, and on the other hand, we still see a little bit of evil still holding on with the last fingers. You know, when something is trying to hold on with their nails, like the last drop, trying to make it that it doesn't happen. So here we see we have to open our eyes. We are in the year 5780. What's special about that year?
8.
Eight is what? 8 is miracles. And what's 7?
7 is nature.
Nature.
Seven.
So we have miracles connected to nature. 5780. 7 and 8 are connected. What is it? And also, if you take the idea of 80, we get 10 times, right? It's a 0. It's 10 times, and 10 is perfection. So we're in a time that the miracles are seen through nature. What can we do? We need to open our eyes. We need to see that there are miracles happening. And it's being done how? Through nature. So open your eyes, pay attention, and understand the miracles. Also, continue to do acts of goodness and kindness. This is very important. Always the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, when they asked him from CNN, they asked him, how could we bring Moshiach? He said, if everybody will do acts of goodness and kindness, because each act brings you closer and closer. Doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just do one thing to bring closer Mashiach. And have faith. Have faith that things will work out. And we need to remember one thing, that we need to know that when Mashiach comes, what's going to happen? V'haya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz, that God will be the king on the whole earth. B'yom hahu yiyeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. At that time, God will be one. His name will be one. We'll be able to see godliness openly. And then, also, when in Amos, there is a Navi called Amos, that he says that I send a Ra'av, I send a, God in the future is going to send a famine. What kind of famine? Lo Ra'av la lechem, it's not a famine of bread. Lo Ra'av la mayim, it's not a famine of water. Ki im, what is it? It's Ki im l'shmoa es divrei Hashem. What is the famine? Because we want to hear the words of Torah. We want to hear the words of God. This is going to be the famine that we're going to see, that we'll start looking and saying, we want to listen. We want to hear the words of God. We're interested in understanding and getting closer and making the world as one. Why? Because remember last week we said, each of us has a yechida, which is the highest level of our soul. Remember we talked about dreams? There's different levels of the soul. The highest level is yechida, which is one with God. And on the level of yechida, all of us are equal. And this is where we have to get to. We have to get to that level of yechida, to look at other people. V'yahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself. We all have a yechida shebenefesh. We all have a little point in our soul that every single one of us is like one. And that's what the idea of Mashiach is, to get back to that oneness, that every single person should be one and the same and together, like it was before in Gan Eden, like it was by Adam when he was in Gan Eden. Everybody was peaceful. Everybody was one. The animals were one. The people were one. Everybody is one and in together. and may we see very, very soon, very speedily. Let this come to fruition, and we should all be happy and healthy and peace and harmony.
Amen. Amen.